Yesterday, President Trump did his best, despite a media blackout, to explain what he is doing and why.
As president, I have no higher duty than to defend the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That is why I am determined to protect our election system, which is now under coordinated assault and siege.
Now, he's not alone in the fight. My next guest says he will challenge the Electoral College votes when Congress meets on January the 6th. Joining me now is Congressman Mo Brooks. He represents the 5th Congressional District of Alabama. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
My pleasure.
All right, you're going to challenge this, but before we get into it, I want to set the stage because this is not a theoretical issue with you. You actually have had experience with voter fraud.
I have. In one of my early elections, I was trying to break the dam. I would have been the only Republican elected in the northern third of the state of Alabama to the state legislature. At that time, Democrats dominated the state legislature 136-4. And in 25% of the voting machines in my legislative district, the Democrats rigged the voting machines so that all votes cast by voters would register except for those for Mo Brooks. So 25 candidates on the ballot other than me, the machines worked for them, did not work for Mo Brooks. And 25% of the voting machines in my district, that was 11 out of 45 machines. At one box where I was extraordinarily strong, none of the 5 voting machines would register votes for Mo Brooks, registered for everybody else, but not Mo Brooks. And it got to the point where, fortunately, the poll workers decided to make periodic announcements that if you want to vote for Mo Brooks for the state legislature, go sign your name on that sheet on the wall. So you lost your secret ballot right, but at least you still could vote for me if I was your preference. Fortunately, and somewhat surprisingly in retrospect, we still won despite being a target of election theft with 57% of the vote.
Now, what was the problem? They couldn't spell Mo in the machine or what? I mean, what was the...
We had lever machines where you'd flip a little lever, a butterfly lever, and when you pulled it down, an X would appear next to the name that you were voting for.
Right.
And you could vote for everybody on the ballot except for Mo Brooks. The Democrats had rigged it so that the lever next to my name would not work. Further, if you pulled the straight ballot lever, it would put an X in front of everybody's name who was a Republican except for Mo Brooks. So that's how they rigged them.
Now, what was the outcome in that case? I know you won the race, but were you able to press that forward and see anything accomplished there?
Well, the Democrats controlled the judicial system. They controlled the investigative bodies that were in charge of it. And basically, they made up some flimsy excuse about it being jostled in transit. Kind of curious that only my lever in different precincts across the legislative district were the only ones affected. But that was the explanation they gave. After our own investigation over a period of time, we pretty much narrowed it down to the one Democrat who was responsible for this election theft effort. But, often it's only one Democrat here in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, or wherever who can influence a tremendous number of votes.
Right. And I'll just say, I think I've mentioned this on the program before, but I had experience in that as well. When I was in the state legislature in Louisiana in 1996, I was the campaign manager for a U.S. Senate race in which there was voter fraud. We had signed affidavits. We knew it. The race was lost by about 5,200 votes out of 1.5 million cast. The problem was with the laws in Louisiana at the time did not provide enough time to challenge the outcome, and the Senate Republicans didn't have the stomach for the fight. But the silver lining there was we went back and in the subsequent year of the legislature, we have reformed our election laws in Louisiana, and we've not had major cases of voter fraud since then as a result of and in fact, this is an issue that you've brought up, is that we required, back then in 1997, we changed the law to require identification for voting registration and to vote. And that's one of the issues you've brought up. You say there are systemic problems that have facilitated this fraud.
There are a number of systemic flaws in our election system that the general public is not aware of. One in particular is the 1993 National Voter Registration Act that the Democrats forced through Congress when they had the House, the Senate, and the White House, that in turn makes it illegal, repeat, makes it illegal for our voter registrars to request proof of citizenship from illegal aliens or other foreigners who are non-citizens of the United States of America. Meaning, if an illegal alien or another non-citizen comes into a voter registrar's office and it demands to be allowed to vote, to be registered to vote, there's nothing the voter registrars can do to prevent it because they no longer have the ability to require proof of citizenship, either a birth certificate, perhaps a driver's license that shows you were born in the United States of America, perhaps your passport. You can't ask for any of that. The Democrats made it illegal, and that opens the door for a minimum of 11 million illegal aliens, if you believe the 2010 census figures, to as many as 23 million illegal aliens, if you believe a 1918 study by Yale, who now can go to the voter registrar's office, ask to be registered to vote, and the voter registrars are powerless to stop them due to the conduct of the Socialist Democrats who, in their quest for political power, are willing to support illegal voting and election theft.
It's amazing. There are very few things you can do in society without presenting identification. You can't get on a plane, can't cash a check, but you can cast what is one of the most sacred duties, or engage in one of the most sacred duties that we have as Americans, and that is to vote. I mean, I would think everybody would agree that, look, we need to make sure that you have a right to vote and that that right is protected. And if you don't have the right to vote, you shouldn't be participating.
Absolutely. In my judgment, this particular example that we're talking about, in my judgment, probably resulted in Joe Biden get a minimum of hundreds of thousands of votes spread across America, more likely in the millions. And what makes it even more egregious is that Joe Biden, on the October 22nd national presidential debate, solicited the support of that illegal alien bloc vote by promising to them, quote, within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people, end quote. Now, the political motivation behind that was quite clearly to encourage illegal aliens and other non-citizens to vote. And if you elect me, Joe Biden, President of the United States, I'm going to give you that amnesty and citizenship you want. To hell with the American people.
So, Mo Brooks, what do you plan on doing on January the 6th?
Well, I am persuaded by a number of systemic flaws in our election system that if only lawful votes cast by eligible American voters were counted, that Donald Trump won the popular vote and won the Electoral College by a sizable margin. As such, I'm going to exercise my right and duty under Article 1, Sections 4 and 5, along with Article 2 and the 12th Amendment of the United States Constitution, to seek to force an election contest in the United States Congress. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. The Supreme Court is not the final say on any federal election. The United States Congress, under the United States Constitution, is the judge and jury that determines whether a contested House race, contested Senate race, or a contested presidential race goes to candidate A or candidate B. And I want to force a vote on the House floor to reject the Electoral College vote submissions of those states who have such badly flawed election systems that their returns are unworthy of respect by the rest of the people of the United States of America, focusing first and foremost on Pennsylvania, followed by Georgia and others.
So how will that vote take place? What does that look like?
Well, the process is also set forth in federal statutes. If myself and a senator join to object, then that forces a recess of the joint session of Congress that receives the Electoral College vote submissions from the states. We then have a maximum of 2 hours to debate any particular challenge to an Electoral College vote submission by a state, and then you have a House floor vote and a Senate floor vote on whether to accept or reject the submission of that state's electoral college votes. In the Senate, majority rules. In the House, it's an open question as to whether it is a majority of the state delegations to Congress that governs that vote, or if it's a majority of the 435 members. If it's 435 members, then Democrats prevail. If, however, it is state delegations, as is required under the 12th Amendment to the United States Constitution, when the House elects the President of the United States, well, Republicans control 27 state delegations in the House. Democrats control 20. That gives us a decided edge.
Going to be very fascinating to watch. Mo Brooks, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for fighting for the truth. If it's there, it needs to be uncovered. We need to know that we can have confidence in our system.